Rick Johnson. He started First Choice Activewear. Rick, how are you, my friend?
I'm very good. How are you doing there, Joe?
Great, my friend. Tell me a little bit about what it is you guys actually do.
We are a screen printer and embroiderer here in Mooresville area, South Iredell area, and we provide contract and retail screen printing and embroidery. Everybody needs a T-shirt. Everybody needs a polo shirt. They need a hat, and that's what we do. We try to provide the area, schools, churches, corporate, spirit wear, basically all above. We try to be a one-stop shop for everybody.
Let's back up a little bit. You've got just a really rich history. Talk a little bit about your background and how you got to owning a small business, because you didn't start there. Talk a little bit about that.
No, I spent 20 years in the service in the Navy. I was submarines for 4 different submarines, an aircraft carrier, and a distribution depot. When I retired, I went to Dell Computer for a year, worked there. And then my family, who had a business in California, had a screen printing operation. They provided PE wear for California, Hawaii, Arizona, all the way up to Washington. And they asked me to join them. No clue how to print a T-shirt. After about a year, it really dawned on me that there's a lot more to it than meets the eye. I mean, you go into Walmart, you see shirts with ink on them or a picture. And so it became a little bit fascinating. I ran all the internal distribution, the processes, and it was a learning process. My father was a salesman. My stepmom, she ran all the internal accounting and operations. After 5 years, family decided, California just wouldn't where we want to raise our children. So we decided to come back east. I had attended the Citadel, my wife being from Mississippi and that, and we wanted to get back to the East Coast. A place with a lot more family values. We joined Badger Sportswear here in Statesville. I started their screen printing business from the ground up, and again, the learning curve was very steep. But it was interesting because I started it from the ground up, and I was not the owner. It was easy to spend the money.
Yeah, and that's an interesting statement. And I tell a lot of my friends and my older brother, who's been in corporate America, pretty much his whole life, that it is completely different making choices and decisions when number one, there's plenty of money there, right? Number one, and number two, it's somebody else's dollars.
That's exactly right.
But you only know that because you've been on both sides of that.
That's exactly right. So after 4 years with Badger, I woke up one day and I said, I really want to be my own boss. I learned the autonomy when I was in the military. I had some with my family business. I really had a lot of Badger, but I really wanted to do it on my own. So I took 2 steps backwards. I started my own business. And let me tell you, it's been a roller coaster.
Well, let's talk a little bit about some of that, because there's plenty of small business people listening. There's a lot of people that are thinking about starting a small business that are listening. What would be the biggest surprise you would tell them that happened as you were trying to build this company? What was that? Something that you just didn't expect was going to be so challenging for you?
There's so many decisions. You can't fathom it. Going into the business and not. If you've never done it and you think you do, you can read all the books you want, but you really need to talk to people that's done it. You need to talk to the coaches. You need to talk to the Joes. You need to talk to the Toms. You need to talk to the guys, because nothing prepares you. Every day you learn something new, whether it be employee relations, taxes, building maintenance, property, the equipment. How do you handle growth? You grow so much, and all of a sudden, do you have enough equipment? So you got to buy equipment. So now you got to get into financing.
Right.
Rick, I've got a question for you. And first of all, I want to say thank you again for your service.
I appreciate it.
And I can imagine a man like yourself, submarines, aircraft carriers, it seems to me that you could have done anything that you wanted to do. Anything. that training, that experience, it just had to be unbelievable. But going into your new business, you just mentioned reading any books. If you had to talk, and Joe had mentioned, to give advice, what book have you read that would help a person getting ready to start their own business? Do you have one in mind?
One of the first ones that I read was, it was called The Buffalo Nickel.
Okay.
And it is a very small book. My college professor had given it to us, and it just talked about the monetary system and the things that you had to learn along those lines.
I knew I liked you. You used the word Buffalo. I'm from Buffalo. That's a great book. That's a great book. Good. Very good.
Rick, let me ask you a question, and you're a perfect guy to ask this question. Whoop. Oh, I was messing with buttons over here. I shouldn't have been messing with
Joe,
Kippy's
stop,
giving them.
Joe. Pay attention.
I was scared. I thought the phone lines were open. I'm like...
So here's the question, Rick. You're this perfect guy to ask this question. You clearly are a leader. You clearly know how to manage and lead people, right? I've always said, and I want you to either confirm or reject this, it is much harder to manage people when they know you get to make the final decision. For example, as a small business person, when I work for you, I know I'm having a conversation with the guy that can make the decision. It is much more difficult for you to change that conversation or buy time because you can't say, well, I got to talk to such and such. I need to talk to corporate. They know that you're the guy, right, making that call. Do you find that to be harder to manage because of that? Give me your thought on that, right? Because I don't have any experience at the big leadership side. I only have the small business side. Give me your thought on that.
It is very tough, and you do find yourself put on the spot many times. And like I said, when I was in management in corporate America, it was easy to make those decisions because I knew somebody was above me. But as a business owner, you're kind of put on the spot. There's been many a times I've had to take a step back and say to the employees, I'm human. My first initial reaction may not be what you want to hear, but give me 24 hours. And I've actually had to pan back and say, okay, should I say no immediately? They may have a valid point. I mean, one thing we learned in the military, and then I heard a lot of Jack Welch's speeches on how to manage people. The top down and bottom up really does work. I mean, you see things through such a funnel at the top that you kind of miss what goes on at the bottom. And yeah, it's very tough. I mean, and like you said, they come to you and they want that answer.
And they really know that deferring that is a conscious choice you have to make. I had a good friend of mine who had a partner that was just absolutely brilliant, and he would tell us all the time, your first answer in business is always no. And then you say, I'll think about it. And so the answer no just sort of defines what's happening. And then he would say, and if it's really good, then they'll be able to defend why you should change your mind.